Welcome to our deep dive into the world of tariff wars. You know, those things your uncle probably rambles on about after a few too many beers at Thanksgiving. Except, unlike your uncle's rambling, these are actually important. Today we'll uncover the key features and impacts of these economic conflicts because understanding them is about as fun as a root canal, but significantly more important for, well, everything. Think of tariffs like this. They're basically the economic equivalent of a toddler throwing a tantrum in a grocery store. They might seem like a good idea at the time. I want that candy bar, and I want it now. But they inevitably lead to tears, frustration, and everyone around them questioning their life choices. We'll be looking at how these economic temper tantrums play out, who throws them, spoiler alert, it's usually not the people you'd expect, and why they always seem to end badly. And trust me, when it comes to tariff wars, things can get really, really bad. Imagine two kids in a sandbox, let's call them America and China. America decides to build a sandcastle, but China, not wanting to be outdone, kicks it down. America retaliates by burying China's plastic shovel. This, my friends, is the essence of a tariff war. One country raises tariffs on another's goods, and the targeted nation, feeling a little petty, retaliates with its own tariffs. This playground spat can escalate faster than you can say trade deficit, disrupting global trade and supply chains. Take the US-China trade war that kicked off in 2018. The US, feeling threatened by China's growing economic prowess, slapped tariffs on Chinese steel and electronics, like some sort of economic bully. Naturally, China, not one to back down from a playground brawl, retaliated with tariffs on American soybeans and agricultural products, and thus began a tit-for-tat exchange that hurt everyone involved. Because, and here's a newsflash for any policymakers watching this, global trade isn't a zero-sum game. When one side loses, everyone loses. But hey, who needs a stable global economy when you can win a petty trade spat, right? The supposed logic behind tariffs is to protect domestic industries from foreign competition. It's like putting your kid in bubble wrap before sending them out to play. Sure, it might prevent a few scrapes, but it also stifles their development and makes them look utterly ridiculous. The idea is that by making imported goods more expensive, consumers will choose the cheaper domestic alternative. But, and here's the kicker, tariffs rarely work that way. Instead, they often backfire, raising costs for consumers and businesses alike. It's like trying to extinguish a fire with gasoline. Well-intentioned perhaps, but ultimately disastrous. Take the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. This disastrous piece of legislation passed with the noble intention of protecting American businesses during the Great Depression, ended up being the economic equivalent of throwing gasoline on a bonfire. It triggered global retaliation, reduced international trade by a staggering 66%, and plunged the world deeper into economic despair. Protectionism, it turns out, is about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. So what happens when you engage in a tariff war? Well, in the short term, the industries being protected might see a temporary boost. They might even throw a little party, popping champagne and toasting to their victory. But their celebration will be short-lived, because the hangover from a tariff war is a brutal one. Retaliatory tariffs inevitably hit other sectors hard. For example, in the US-China trade war, American farmers lost a whopping $28 billion, that's billion with a B. And who do you think picked up the tab for that little economic miscalculation? That's right, the American taxpayer. In the long term, everyone loses. Consumers face higher prices for everyday goods, supply chains get disrupted, and overall economic growth takes a nosedive. The US-China trade war, for example, cost US firms an estimated $1.7 trillion in market value. That's enough money to buy, well, you know, a lot of things. You'd think that with such a spectacular track record of failure, humanity would have learned its lesson about tariff wars. But alas, history, like a toddler with a sugar rush, is doomed to repeat itself. Take the 1930s German-Polish customs war. Germany, in all its infinite wisdom, decided to raise tariffs on Polish coal. Poland, understandably annoyed by this economic bullying, decided to fight back, not with tariffs, but by building its own port in Gdynia to bypass German trade routes altogether. It was a bold move, and it worked. Germany, in its attempt to weaken Poland, only managed to strengthen its resolve and independence. Fast forward to the 2020s, and what do we see? The US, under the leadership of a certain orange-hued individual, decided to slap tariffs on everyone, including allies like Canada and Mexico. The result? Chaos in the auto and agricultural markets, strained relationships with key allies, and a collective facepalm heard around the world. The lesson here: tariff wars are like a game of chess played by pigeons. There's a lot of strutting, a lot of shit flying around, and in the end, the board is just completely fucked. Trade wars aren't just about economics. They're about power, politics, and the delicate balance of global relations. Remember that sandbox analogy from earlier? Well, imagine those two kids start throwing sand at each other, then rocks, then eventually their parents get involved, and suddenly you've got a full-blown neighborhood brawl on your hands. The Opium Wars, from 1839 to 1860, are a prime example of how trade disputes can escalate into military conflicts. What began as a disagreement over, of all things, opium, spiraled into a series of devastating wars between Britain and China. In the 21st century, the lines between trade and national security are becoming increasingly blurred. The US, for example, has imposed restrictions on semiconductor exports to China, citing national security concerns. These restrictions, ostensibly aimed at curbing China's technological advancement, have further escalated tensions between the two superpowers. It's a dangerous game of chicken, with the global economy hanging in the balance. So, there you have it. Tariff wars, the economic equivalent of a dumpster fire in a sewage plant. They're messy, they're pointless, and they leave everyone worse off. The next time you hear a politician championing tariffs as a solution to economic woes, remember this: they're either lying or they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And frankly, in this political climate, either option is equally terrifying. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into global economic issues. And remember, the next time you feel like starting a trade war, just go for a walk in the park instead. It's better for everyone involved.